actually carried out geophysical survey in so many states in the country.
Politically, in 1987, that was when we do what you now call the zero-party election.
The things you use to earn money are there. It's just for you to know how to think of developing them.
Representing the people is you being a trustee of dividend of democracy to the people. The people are the beneficiaries.
Being an executive director, I'll be able to help and use my experience.
The state now, the environment is quite friendly. The foundation has been laid for even foreign investors, other investors within the Nigerian economy to come in.
It's glad to have you join us once again on our profiling program. Welcome to the biggest personality television program, Deltascope. My name is Isioma Adigwe. Deltascope is a weekly magazine program that plays host to some social, economic, and political leaders who have contributed their own quota to the development of Delta States in their various leadership capacities. On Deltascope, we tend to extract from these leaders their works, their achievements, and their contributions to the development of Delta State and Nigeria at large. Today, our media crew met with a very interesting personality. He has been conferred with several awards on humanitarian service, a pioneer in the structuring of the Delta State Civil Service, a man whose philosophy is more of humanity. He has served on the board of directors of numerous companies, both in private and public sector. A one-time chairman Interim Management Committee of DESOPADEC. We're talking about Mr. Reginald Bayoko, who is a current head of service of Delta State. Let's meet him.
Let's go back from the beginning. You've been around. I mean, from a child. You know, you were born in Enugu. You started your primary school in Calabar, ended up in Benin, staying in Lagos, then secondary school in Benin again. Your father must have been a teacher or a policeman, a prison officer. Okay.
My father was a prison officer.
Okay.
And I'll tell you very elatedly that I'm impressed that you had a bit of my background. I've moved around Nigeria in my youth. Then later on, as God exposed me to life, I've also been around the world. Okay. But let's talk about the youth first.
Yeah, the youth thing. Yeah. Then from secondary school, you went to same university in Epoma, that's in Benin.
Yes.
Then your youth service was in Katsina. Okay. All that movement, has they molded your character in any way?
Oh yes, and thank you for putting it in this perspective.
Yes.
Because what you've done, you've hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
They've actually molded me, just not my character, but my outlook in life generally.
Okay.
And it means that at certain situations, I ask myself, I step back and say, oh yes, I thank God for that experience that I had. Because like you rightly stated, my father was a prison officer. And what usually happened was that if he was going to gain promotion and transfer, and he was now moving. And incidentally, I was born during the war.
Okay.
And then it was in Enugu, that's where I was born. And the war just broke out.
Okay.
They had to now take me to the village. So I experienced firsthand what the village situation was.
Village now we were?
It was a Kiabodo.
Your movement and your, where you come from your extract, has that made you any way detribalized?
Oh yes. I think I like your language, detribalized. Because what we should be looking at first of all is humanity.
Right.
No matter your tribe, no matter where you come from, first of all there's humanity. And like I've just explained here, even in Delta here, where I came from, my father was Ijaw, my mother was Urobo. But we even had extended family because I come from the Beke Deremo family in Kiabodo, very large family from my grandmother's side. Then there's also the Sowaris family, very large family from my father's side. And if you look at that family, very expansive, it's a mini representation of Nigeria, because the Beckett and Moss were very adventurous. They married far and wide, even in those days, and up to the current situation. So it gave me room to understand people's perspective, what it is essentially humanity is all about. It doesn't really matter where you come from, but that's your root.
So would you say your philosophy is more of humanity than persons?
Yes, more of humanity, because I've looked at everything, and I would also say here, unashamedly, is my Christian faith. I may not say that I got that faith early enough, but I had that foundation, and I got it deeper and deeper and deeper.
After your youth service in Katsina, you came back to Lagos.
Yes.
Okay. Then you joined the civil service.
Oh, very well.
Okay. But at that time, I'm assuming that the civil service was not lucrative, was not interesting for youths. I mean, in my time, civil service were very, very poorly paid. You know, there was no attraction, but you got attracted to it. You know. Was that by design, or was a lack of job, you fall into civil service, or you decided you want to be a civil servant?
I will tell you, it was by choice. I decided that I was going to be a civil servant.
Okay.
And in that sphere, it fitted my philosophy. And incidentally, sir, just yesterday and even this morning, I had conversations. I mean, I always have conversations with a number of persons, and I tell them, money is not everything. Money is good, but it's not the ultimate. And in everything, you can also attract money. By my own nature, which is what I've just explained, I have that passion for humanity. And there was nowhere else I could express it apart from the civil service. But it was underlined by the fact that, like I said, my father was a prison officer. And he had this experience. As a prison officer, prison service was a parastatal under the larger public service. And he used to go to the ministry and deal with young administrative officers. One thing was fundamental, and that was even the dream that I had of saying, I'm going to sit here or not here. I got it in the public service, but that's a story for another day, even if you want to ask me.
Okay, all right. So,
Thank you.
yes, you are a pioneer. You're a pioneer member of the Delta State Civil Service. I mean, you transferred from Bendel.
Correct.
As well there. What was it like? I mean, you came into a place that had no structure. You know, being a pioneer members of the civil service. You know, how were you able to manage it? I mean, coming from Bendel that had all the structure, and here you are in Delta State, no structure, no infrastructure. You know, so let's share that experience with you.
Oh yes, I will take you back that many years back, but I think I still look back at it with nostalgia.
Yes.
Yeah, because it was an excitement, and we were seeing so many things, and it just came out of the blues. I say yes, we all move into Delta. First of all, if you were from Delta, you had to come to Delta. If you were in Edo, remain in Edo. But like you said, there were no structures. But first, the euphoria was there that this was a state for all of us. Because if you enter the service as you had entered, it was very clear that there were some idiosyncrasies. Let's put it in that language. They may not be correct, they may not be, but we were not saying we had our own state just when we went. So we all left excitedly, and it was a joy. Let's be honest, because there was no infrastructure for a state capital of that nature. It happened overnight, and some of us had that philosophy. God can change your situation overnight, and you have to face it. Some people couldn't. What used to happen to many of us was that we used to travel because first of all we had to find where to stay in the summer. Wasn't available. We used to travel every day at the risk. Road not as expensive as it is now. You can imagine what it was. Then in terms of the offices, where we had dedicated, and even within our ranks too, dedicated officers. We're excited about that. Sometimes we had to walk from under the tree. Yeah. But what was important is that you had institutional memory. Not institutional memory that you will call up. An institutional memory that you will say it as it is, exactly as it is. We used to walk from under the tree. The military administrator then was in the Oshimili local government, not as you know it, as a patched up place then. And that was where it was operating from as government house. And that was the leadership. then what about us? No way. We have to. Anyhow you can work from anywhere you find yourself.
Did you at any point, sir,
Yes, sir.
during that process, get a bit frustrated?
For me, as a person, I never.
Okay.
And let me tell you why. And I still take that philosophy. I'm an incurable optimist. I don't believe there's any situation that cannot be changed for good. And I'm perhaps going to also anchor it on my Christian principle. God doesn't make mistakes. He allows the good and bad, but he gives us the options to know what is good and bad. And if we say we want to choose this is it, the one that is good, so be it. If we say we want to choose the one that is bad, he also says so be it, but realize that this is also bad. So I was never frustrated.
At a point, you were director of finance, in charge of investment and loans, and also overseeing the state's investment in private sector. As a civil servant, with civil service culture. Now you're mingling with private partners with capitalistic culture. How were you able to blend your responsibility? Because now you're representing the states and you're a civil servant. They are representing their money and their investment.
In the government where we are, and you're serving the public, you have to define your role as against what the private sector is. Truly, in government, you can make a comparison of what the role is, and if you're looking at private sector, which is profit oriented, in government is efficient service delivery.
Okay,
that's it. So you just basket it, and at the end of the day, because that's our bottom line. You're delivering service to the citizen, and they should be satisfied. That's your profit and loss. And you will also now understand that, yeah, the private sector exists for you in government to also exist. And what you need to do is synergize your effort and ensure that there's a balance. But one thing that was very important for me, very, very important, is that I found myself here in public service. First, as a choice. Then second, as the ones I've just explained, given the background of my father. And if I didn't want to, I could have also gone and roamed myself, and eventually, perhaps I've also gotten into the public service. But where am I going to? I see a number of consultants, even international organizations and all the rest. It's always a blend. The private sector cannot do without the public sector, and the public sector cannot do without the private sector. So where do you find it? You must find a balance, a synergy, as a whole, instead of one apart, to give better service. And that was the mindset that I took in there.
Now you talk about training, change of mindset. How have that been applied in the civil service here now?
I'll be very short on that.
Yes.
I am not where I have to be in terms of that. And the reason, well, let me not use the word reason, because the training I also had in the National Institute is that there's no excellent excuse for failure.
Right.
You know that you have failed in this regard. Re-examine yourself and just look for options to make it better. We need to do better in terms of training. But I've always, and every given opportunity I have, and I tell my staff, there are a number of free resources on this smartphone that you subscribe, even if it's only 200 naira. Instead of you to be subscribing to Facebook, all those other ones for that 200 naira, you can train yourself freely without any cost.
Right.
And when I see it, I'll be encouraged to say, oh yes, you have started something for you on yourself. Let me expand it for you beyond this. And I can also underwrite that. And that's the challenge I've been facing in terms of that. And it's the mindset. People don't want to understand that we have moved away from the normal. Oh yes, come and to pay you this money and go. Well, government can pay you that money, but show first, right? The simple thing: come to work early. I don't need to chase you. Then train yourself within this. And when you now tell me, yeah, this is how far I've gone, I'm encouraged. But all the obligations they say, oh, it's on government, it's on government, it's on government, it's on government. It becomes a bit of a burden. And it's a mindset I'm still trying to change. Now, unfortunately, it's a tough thing to do, but I will not give up. Because like I said, the situation can turn around with God on our side overnight when we think that is impossible. But I never think it's impossible because I know that God is on our side.
Let me take you on what you said,
Yes, sir.
which is come to work early. At the point you digitalized the electronic register and biometric. Yes. Did that give a plus to the service?
It did, essentially. And which is what I always tell the people, that nobody had to tell you. But fundamentally, sir, you know what is right and what is not right. Do the right thing.
Yeah, but we were in a climate where people are forced to do the right thing. What was the compliance level?
It was very high. The only breach, which is what I'm telling you, some people were still going to where they felt was the closest point.
Yes.
Just think. And you know, in the whole process, you can come in, but it's not recording that you are there. So some people will go and do the thumping, then leave and come out and thump out. But what was important first was that given that situation, at least we know that you used to come to work. Honestly, on the average, very many dedicated officers who know what is right and wrong. But the few that gives the bad name flies more. And I always tell people the example is just like you say you want to go and take the plane ride. The plane will take off from Asaba Airport, land successfully in Abuja. It's not news. But the moment there is a queue or there's a delay on towards here, it becomes news.
Yes.
The moment the flight has turbulence or a crash land, it becomes news. But it doesn't remove the fact that before that, there have been several ones that have been going successfully.
Right.
And that's what we face in service. But we want to tell those bad eggs too. You can be like the normal one and make your own effort.
Okay. At the point you served as an interim chairman of a DESOPADEC.
Okay, you're
reminding
me.
1 full year. Let's go on that memory and see what was it like.
Oh yes, it was a different phase of experience.
Okay.
But I'm grateful to God that I had that opportunity. Because what it gave me was, I'll tell you, at the second degree in university, I did Masters in Business Administration.
All right.
And I had a number of case studies, which I was now applying in real life in terms of the DESOPADEC case. But I would just say, first of all, that I'm grateful to God that I had that opportunity.
Okay.
I'm grateful to God, to the governor then, who taught me wise to go there. I was also grateful to our current governor, was SSG, when I went there. And I'm grateful to God to even the management led by Chief Okrika that I went to relieve and do. And I'm grateful to God too, to the staff there. There were a number of things. I communicated with them. I also have feedback till today. If I step in there, I think I have that respect that I deserve.
When you became a permanent secretary, you were the youngest permanent secretary. 2020, you became the chief employer of the state. Okay, the youngest as well. Okay, how does that make you feel? What have you achieved?
Let me put that word in context.
Yes.
The real chief employer is the Civil Service Commission.
Okay.
So what I do as head of service is to understand the staffing needs of all the
MDAs.
MDAs, right, and do an opinion of all the other ones that have their specific laws and boards.
Okay.
As referred to me by the governor.
Okay.
But let me tell you one thing, which was part of that biometrics process.
Yeah.
We had to look at the optimum level of staffing that should be. And it will always balance with the level of funds available. Right. The political masters are there. They have a mandate. It's not just for employment's sake. It's also to deliver on infrastructure and social services to the larger populace. But we also understand that in terms of the employment, for me, for instance, even as a very young officer, there was a multiplier effect. And I have more than up to 4 minimum dependent. It's the same thing because that situation doesn't change within where we are. So if you employ me, truly, you are taking care of at least 4 or 5 persons.
Right.
And that's a mindset.
You say you have a wonderful wife. I'm taking your words. Tell me about your family.
Oh,
How important is your family to you?
no, they're very, very important, and thank you for that. As you now talk about the wonderful wife, I'm seeing her smile. She has open teeth. And she encouraged me.
Okay.
Encouraged me very, very totally. Because I'll tell you, as human beings, sometimes we can be crazily stupid.
Right.
We can be crazily stupid. And it is part of it. Sometimes you have strength in synergy instead of being apart. And that's what God brought us up together. And I will tell you too, because my meeting her was divine. I had an appointment an engagement in Abuja. I went, then it wasn't this phone thing. There was a burial ceremony of her late sister. Listen very carefully. Was her late sister. And somehow along the way, I had different reasons not to meet that ceremony. And as God would do it, as I came from Abuja, I went straight to where I knew where the bus was supposed to be. And I was the last man with all my bag from Abuja. That's how I boarded the bus to the ceremony. And when we got to the ceremony, I saw this young girl crying. And I told my friend, I said, I like this girl. She's my wife. Go and call her for me. And then when I said, how can you, even in this world, you see this small girl, they cry, you still find a woman? I said, no, go and call her. You know, as he saw the force in me, he really went to call her. There was nothing I could tell her. I said, sorry, don't cry. It will be well, finish. That's how we left it too. One strange day in Asaba, that was how I saw her. I was driving off in a taxi because I forgot the motor. And I said, but this is that girl. I don't remember. But the thing, stop. And I went to her. The young girl, she was trying to fail, but my spirit was convinced. As they say, the rest is history.
Finally, you've been on this roller coaster. I'm sure you must have had some downsides, and upsides. Let's share that.
Obviously, as a human being, I've had some downside.
Yes.
And there are also some upside. But I also anchor it on my Christian faith. There is nothing too hard for God.
Right.
And there's nothing that He does for you which is not for a purpose. I also had this experience as a primary school going to secondary school. I went to do an exam. Myself and one of my very good friends, he's a very famous lawyer now, a brother. We were just jumping nonsensically, which is not my usual nature. I'm a cool, calm guy, but I was rascal. And all of a sudden, I noticed that I didn't notice. All of them stopped jumping from where we were jumping. And I got to the edge of the cliff. Something just held me back. As I looked down, it was almost like a bottomless pit. If I had jumped without looking, don't finish. God pulled me back. I decided to be rascal, which was bad, but it was for Him to prove something. And it's the same thing when we see some adversities, it's also for Him to prove something in your life. And that's why people they tell me, I'm just an average guy.
Average school guy.
Yes, average school guy. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Wow, such an interesting personality, linked with diligence, commitment, and distinguished amongst others. Mr. Reginald Bayoko, and a man of honor indeed, I must say. For active participation, it's important you follow and subscribe to our different social media handles right on your screen. On behalf of the producer and the entire production crew, I say a very big thank you for riding with us on this edition of your personality program, The Autoscope. My name is Isioma Adigwe. See you next week.